Reese, what he asks to people, and I'm also going to start asking this, like, when you just, focus on what you subconsciously find the most important in your life. What is it? What do you value the most subconsciously? If you have to put a priority list. Some people say family, some people say friendship, some people say being part of something. Some people say like relationship, freedom, right action. And I was telling like Reese, like, yeah, I had an entire conversation about it yesterday on the stream. And I asked like, what is it for you? And he says right action. And he said like back in the days it was Hinduism, or what does it means? Like really enjoying life, but he changed that quite quickly because he realized that that's not really, he was already happy enough. And it was also his like a romantic relationship, but he also figured that out the hard way, that was not, most important. And he was then doing good, which then became more and more right action. And I was like, yeah, to me it's not right action. To me it's making sense. And then I started explaining why that is. And I never really talked about it the way I'm going to talk about it now. So that's why I think this is maybe very interesting. I even, I made the screen black. So I can't see the screen. So I can really focus because it's quite advanced. Yet it's not so advanced. It's quite simple. But it will give you guys more insight than any real talk I've ever done about me. It will make you guys really understand how I think on a fundamental level. So, since I was very young, and I'm talking about 8, 9, 10 years old, I was always thinking, what is the strongest foundation you can have as a human being? Because you can think about, like, for example, what I value is, what I think is friendship, for example. But like, what is the foundation? What is the structure? What is the strongest grounding? You can't really build, an entire worldview and paradigm on just friendship. How would that even look? What is the map? What is the structure? Like, how do you go about it? And since I was very young, I always thought, like, what is the ultimate foundation that you as a person you can grow on and really create a worldview that is that is basically indestructible. And when I say indestructible, I don't mean like ego or all these things. I really mean like just very solid, that nobody can come and wash away with arguments. And I know a lot of people think, the more intelligent, like some more intelligent people think it's experience. Because you can't go below experience, right? When you really go down to really the basic, what you have is just experience, that's it. And everything that you think, every word, every sentence, every structure, every concept is built on that. And then what you can easily get is things like The Secret, where you have, where you can control the universe with your ideas and with your experience. You can easily get, in that alley. And then when you then get confronted with really bad experiences, you really get confronted with the idea like, this maybe doesn't make any sense. Because, even though I don't want to experience pain, I don't want to be depressed, so why am I... It seems that my experience is not the foundation of my reality. There seems to be something more that governs my reality. And that's where... that's where my foundation comes. Making sense. Making sense, even though you need experience in order to even come to the idea of making sense. Experience itself requires a pattern. What we understand as experience is a very, very advanced pattern. It requires memories, it requires thoughts, it requires emotions, it requires everything we take for granted to even be able to think about the concept of experience. And that requires a very, very strong mathematical pattern. Without this mathematical pattern, I wouldn't even be able to actually express the idea of experience. You could still say maybe it's still there, the experience, but in order to even, quantify it or to verbalize it, you need very specific patterns to even be able to think about it. So when you think about experience being the foundation of everything, you go like, okay, experience is the foundation of everything. The problem with that is that it doesn't give you structure. It doesn't give you really something to build on. And therefore, when people think about it that way, they can very easily be misguided and directed into ways where they create existential loopholes that contradict each other because it doesn't fall in line with reality. And as a result, as much as you believe certain things, it just doesn't jive and you experience dissonance because it's contradicting ideas. It's contradicting on one end to say experience is the basic of everything, but at the same time, I experience things I don't want to experience, and this reality here that seems seemingly part of my experience seems to dictate how I experience. And that is why making sense is actually the underlying mechanism that brings structure to everything, and even our thoughts and our ability to speak and everything. And even though you can still argue and say you need experience to even come to that idea and constatation, it is like almost like this, like it's two sides of the same coin. You can't talk about experience without the other. And that's where you go to the foundation of like what was first, experience or reality. The thing is, you need both in order to to have them express each other, because a reality without experience, you can wonder to which extent there is even time and such. But experience without reality, and when I say reality here, experience without a pattern, without a structure, without a logical pattern, doesn't allow you to express that experience within a framework, and therefore it's just it is non-cohesive. It's non-structured, physical, and doesn't materializes itself, and it's basically just everywhere and nowhere at the same time. You can't really build, on that. And that is where, making sense is where making sense comes from. So like, it's basically the patterns that bring about our experience, like the patterns that govern our experience, the patterns that also govern our reality and govern everything we experience and we're part of. That is my foundation on a belief system level. And what I value the most is making sense. So, and this goes really back, really when I was really a kid. I was completely fascinated, and I was completely almost what's the word, not more than fascinated, almost completely what's the word when you obsessed. I was obsessed with making sense since I was really young, and still to the day today I'm still obsessed. But I wouldn't use the word obsessed because it doesn't make so much sense. But at the same time, when you think about it, the foundation of your reality has to be making sense. Else, even the expression of experience, it doesn't make sense. You need a foundation that makes sense in order to build something on top of that. Else, it doesn't make sense. If you want to make sense, you need like making sense has to be the foundation, because if you take rationality and logic out of the equation, you can have all these different like floaty belief systems and experiences that are completely different from person to person, and you don't have a cohesive reality anymore. And at the end of the day, we all share the same reality. So if we want to be on the same page and think like and think structurally, then of course making sense, you know, is fundamental to our ability to communicate and interact. And it is. Our ability to speak and think and create thought is built on these patterns, but we take them for granted and we forget about them. And that's why when I was always thinking about what is the strongest foundation, logic, structure, rationality. And basically, to go back to me being obsessed by it, what it resulted to, like my obsession to making sense, was directly connected with understanding. Because when I saw things that didn't make sense, I didn't go like, this doesn't make sense. I was like, I lack understanding. Because if I have full understanding in what is going on here, then suddenly it will start making sense. So my strong fascination with making sense and having a strong foundation in who I am resulted in me trying to understand everything. And if there was something I didn't understand, like I didn't accept it, I went to bed with it, I thought about it. And there are certain things that I can bring up, like a lot of phases when I grew up that really kept me busy for so long. Like, for example, if we're inherently selfish, what's the difference between someone doing evil and someone doing good? It was something that, like, it caused so much dissonance. I didn't understand it. I was like, but there is a flaw. There must be a flaw. But with all my logic, I didn't understand where the flaw was. And it's only later that I figured out it's how you define the self. And that's where the logical fallacy is. And the thing is that it's been like that with everything. And I also talked about it a little bit yesterday, like even when there was an issue or when there was a problem, I always had a drive to understand what was going on, because if I didn't understand it, it didn't make sense. And the idea of something not making sense caused so much dissonance, because that was questioning my entire reality, my entire foundation. And because of that strong drive of making sense, I grew to the person I am now. It has shaped me completely. And that's why I'm so inhumanly act like a robot. It's not because I am a robot. It's because I've always had a fascination and a strong obsession with making sense. And who I am grew out of that. And when something didn't make sense, I had to figure out how to make it work. And let me tell you guys how it actually expressed itself, because it goes really very far. When I was in a situation where something didn't make sense, I was really like, I almost had like something, it's almost like I'm being something like a cloud is over me and pushing me and narrowing me down, and I lose awareness almost. Like it's almost like an invisible wall. I am unable to do something that doesn't make sense. I really like, it's almost like on a psychological fundamental level, I'm unable to do stuff that doesn't make any sense. I experience too much dissonance. So if I'm confronted with something that makes more sense, I'm completely wired to just do that. Like I'm completely wired to just do that, because else my entire reality breaks down. And that is why I am who I am. And even right action and doing good, all is built on that making sense, that layer of making sense. That's why I also did the TED Talk where I say from science you have a moral compass. You can have a moral compass from a scientific point of view. You don't need, you don't need religion for that, or anecdotal narratives or whatever. You don't need it. You just need to look at your evolution, your biological evolution, and even the evolution of culture and history and understanding of how the brain works. It gives you so much insight in why we are what we are. And it makes so much sense to do good. It makes so much sense to actually contribute to society and see the world from a global awareness rather than from one that is just limited from my experience. And it's because that obsession and that fascination with making sense that I'm so structured. And that's why I can say anyone can come to me. Like there is very little that people can give me to shake me up, because from the ground up I built an entire reality that is built on the obsession to make sense, to be logical, to be really fine-tuned. And that's why in my entire life I've never had someone that could come and shake me up. Nobody has been able to do that, because my entire life was built around making sure that everything is structured. So if something didn't work, I really thought about it until I had to replace it or adapt it. And that is how I made the entire structure of who I am. That's why I'm so confident. That's why I'm so, so like, that's why I that's why I am who I am. And the thing is that that I take it for granted. I take it for granted that making sense is of course the foundation of everyone, right? Else it doesn't make sense. Like, to me, it's almost like when I look at people and they don't make sense. For a long time, I couldn't grasp what was going on. I couldn't understand why people did what they did. And it's only when I started understanding neuroscience, same with Ian and Dean, the reason why they left and stuff, I couldn't understand it. I was like, but why? And it's when I understood human psychology and the flaws and everything that, it started making sense, and the dissonance was taken away. And I say it also, like, when I talk to you guys, when I have real talk, sometimes I say stuff and then at night I think, like, what is a counter argument I would give to what I said there? Because I don't feel like this is fully, consistent. And then I have conversations with myself that go much deeper than the ones I have on the stream. And where I really try to be extremely skeptical, and I constantly pinpoint to each other. Like, I can think for hours about something simple I said in the stream to make sure, like, was this accurate or not? Is there a flaw in the logic? What if I say this? What about that? What about that? Whether it's about evolutionary biology or whether it's about vegetarianism or whatever, or veganism, like, I really scrutinize these things like crazy. It keeps me awake. Throughout my life, it has kept me awake. Like, I've gotten much better at it and much more structured, but I'm just saying, like, my entire life has been a roller coaster of figuring out and making sense of the reality around me. And when things didn't make sense, I just had to figure out why. So yeah, I just wanted to explain this to you guys, because when I explained this to Reese, he said, like, yeah, but like, it's something you should really explain, because it makes so much more sense why you are how you are when you see it like that. It makes so much more sense why you've become the person you are, and why you are so, so scarily hard to identify with. Because of course, if you go through life and you want to make sense out of everything, of course you become more and more more and more machine-like. It's not because I'm a machine. I still have all the emotional and like the emotional mechanics, and I still have the same brain. It's just my highest value, my obsession, and my fascination has been making sense, because when I was really young, from a very young age, I wanted to have the perfect foundation. Since I was really young, I wanted to have the perfect foundation. And I always scrutinized it. And sometimes it was different. I was like, oh yeah, like it grew a lot. And it has come to this.